All right, well, welcome everyone. We are so pleased to have you with us for today's AmeriCorps Tribal Grant Q&A session. My name is Kate McHugh, and I'm a portfolio manager in the Midwest region. I will be co-facilitating today's session along with my colleague, Becky Curtis. And I think we are going to start out with some introductions today. So I'll hand it over to Becky to get us started with that.
Sure, thanks, Kate. My name is Becky Curtis. I'm a portfolio manager in the West region. My portfolio of grants is largely in Alaska and the Pacific Islands. And I am going to pop it over to Chandrea Leonard, who is leading the outreach team for this grant.
Hi, Becky. Thanks so much, and welcome everyone. We're so glad you've been able to join us today, and this is our final session for Q&A before the deadline next week. We're very excited that you're able to join and hope that we can get your questions answered for you. And thank you again to Becky and Kate for leading today's call.
Thanks, Chandrea. And also on the call, Brooke, did you want to introduce yourself?
Great. Yeah, thank you. My name is Brooke Crosby. I am the Special Assistant for Native American Affairs for AmeriCorps. Thank you for being here today. Please reach out to me along with anybody in your regional staff. I'll drop our general email address in the chat in case you want to reach out.
Thanks, Brooke. Today we're also joined, or Colleen Holohan has joined us from AmeriCorps State and National. Colleen, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure, thanks, Kate. Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Holohan, Policy and Procedure Specialist with AmeriCorps State and National out of our headquarters office in DC. I'm happy to be here with you today and answer any questions you might have about this competition.
Thanks, Colleen. And now we'd like to open it up and see if there are any other AmeriCorps staff who would like to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'll go ahead and go. This is Jennifer Logston. I'm a portfolio manager up in the Northeast region with most of the grants in my portfolio falling in Massachusetts. Thank you all for joining us today.
All right, I think that is it for introductions. So I just wanted to take a moment to go over the agenda for today. We've already done our welcome and introductions. Next, we're going to go over some important documents to review. We will also go over some pre-submitted or previously submitted questions, in addition to pre-submitted questions that we received for today's session. After that, we'll take live questions. Then we have some reminders for you as well, and then we will close our session out. And thank you, Becky, for putting in the chat. Please feel free to introduce yourselves. We'd love to know who you are and who you're working with. All right, so moving on, we'll just go over some of the documents that are relevant to this competition. First and foremost, we have the notice of funding opportunity. That will give you additional, or will give you all the information about the opportunity we have for you now, as well as some instructions. We do have the mandatory supplemental information that will provide you with anything else that you'll need to know, as well as the AmeriCorps State and National application instructions. These three documents will all be really important during the application process while you're working on those applications. So if you have any questions, I would look there first. And we can drop some links in the chat so that everyone has access to those as well. All right, so we are going to go over some previously asked questions. The first one, is it required to be a planning grantee first before you can apply for a 3-year grant? And the answer is no, it is not required. New applicants can apply for either a 1-year planning grant or a 3-year operational grant. Next question, do planning grants require match? Yes, match is required for planning grants. As a new first-year cost reimbursement grant with AmeriCorps State and National, the match for a planning grant is 24%. Planning grants are awarded for a maximum of 1 year and may not exceed $75,000 per program. Does the match have to be secured at the time of submitting the application, or can it be proposed based on applying for other grant fund sources that are pending? So the answer to this, it doesn't have to be secured at the time of the application, but we ask that in the source of funds section of the budget that you would note whether your match is secured or proposed. Oops, sorry about that. All right, so how are members selected for the program? So once a grant has been awarded, member recruitment and selection is the responsibility of the grantee. It's all conducted through the My AmeriCorps portal. Some grantees opt to recruit members from within their community. Other grantees cast a net that is wider and can recruit potential members from across the country. All selected members must meet AmeriCorps state and national member eligibility requirements. So that's important to keep in mind. And another question, what other tribes and programs have been funded in my area? So AmeriCorps is committed to transparency in grant making, and information for new and recompeting applications will be published on the AmeriCorps results of grant competitions. That happens within 90 business days after all grants are awarded each year. So information about funded grants and subgrants is also available at usaspending.gov. Submitted program narratives for successful applications and a summary of external reviewer comments will be available upon request via email to AmeriCorpsOGA@cns.gov. Some other questions more related to the budget. Do you have any federal cost principles or application examples that we could review for technical assistance? And yes, we absolutely do. There are some great budget development resources available at our AmeriCorps.gov website, specifically under the Budget Development Technical Assistance webinar section. You can view recordings of past webinars. You can also look at a sample budget as well to help guide you in this process. There are specific budget instructions in the application instructions as well, and that includes a checklist for all of the budget sections. Next question, what if we are unable to secure the required match? So for anyone who's concerned about match for this competition, the agency is allowing AmeriCorps ARP funds to be used as match replacement. So those are funds secured through the American Rescue Plan. So they would be allowable as match replacement for this time. And then I apologize, my animations seem to be slightly off on these slides. Okay, so we're going to get into pre-submitted questions. We had 2 pre-submitted questions for today. The first of which was, will a face page be generated for planning grants? And the answer is yes. eGrants automatically generates that face page for all of our grant applications. And our next question, we have someone who is interested in learning about services relating to child welfare. So Becky and I went through, we talked before this call, and we went over the funding priorities for this competition. So AmeriCorps seeks to prioritize the investment of national resources in educational opportunity and economic mobility for communities experiencing persistent unemployment or underemployment, and students experiencing homelessness or those in foster care. We are also prioritizing economic opportunity and education Economic opportunity includes digital skills and increased access to broadband, and education focuses on improving student academic performance, specifically in STEM, traditional knowledge, and Indigenous language, and serving students who attend Bureau of Indian Education schools. So I referenced you in a previous slide. You can also go back and look and see what programs have been funded to gain a better understanding of how this funding can be best utilized for your program. So I will drop that link and several other links in the chat. And I am going to hand it over to Becky to go over some live questions if any of you have any today.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kate. And thanks for dropping some additional resources for our participants into the chat. We're so excited to see the robust interest in this important funding opportunity, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have now. We've hosted a number of technical assistance sessions over the last 2 months, and also have written support materials available on the funding opportunity webpage. So you can feel free to follow up with us on anything that's been presented in previous sessions, or anything that's included in any of the application materials. And if you haven't had a chance to review those materials yet, I highly encourage you to browse the NOFO website, because you'll find generally all the support that you need to craft your application right on that site. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to any additional questions you all have. You can feel free to either unmute yourself and ask the question aloud, or you can go ahead and type it in the chat. So either one is fine. And it looks like we have a question from Bethany in the chat. At what point will I know if my narrative exceeds the page limit? So the page limit, it will be as it prints out from eGrants. So doing a print of your draft before submission can help you to ensure that you're within the page limit. Does anyone from AmeriCorps have any follow-up on that? Yes, Chandrea put in the chat, do the print view before submission. So that'll ensure that you know exactly where the end of your narrative cuts off. So what other questions do folks have? So I got a direct message just now. Is a nonprofit working to help tribal communities eligible? Within this NOFO, the eligible applicants are federally recognized tribes, of course, but then there's also eligibility for nonprofits that are sanctioned or controlled or chartered by a federally recognized tribe. And if you wanted to apply as one of those nonprofits, you would need a sanctioning letter from the tribes saying your organization by name is authorized to apply on their behalf. And there's details about that within the NOFO. But yes, we have a number of nonprofits that have sought this funding in partnership with a federally recognized tribe. Bethany wrote in the chat, for those of us who are insecure and nervous, can I contact someone after submitting to make sure it arrived? So that's a great question. I'm wondering if any of the other AmeriCorps staff on the line know if there is a follow-up address that we can direct folks to.
Hi, this is Trandrea. We're not going to be able to give you any specific updates about your application once it's submitted, but you'll be able to see the application status in eGrants, and it should say submitted to CNCS. So, and you'll also get a notification once you submit in eGrants that you've successfully submitted your application.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So your confirmation will be that status in eGrants. It looks like I got another direct message just now. What regional contact should we reach out to if we are working with multi-state communities? It's fine for you to reach out to any of the regional contacts. I would suggest if your tribe or organization is headquartered in a state, I would reach out to that regional contact, regardless of if you're applying to have sites in multiple states. And it looks like Megan just added in, as a former program director, I highly recommend taking a screenshot of the confirmation webpage after you submit your application for your records. That's a great tip. It's always nice to have that documented record just in case. It also looks like Colleen added in, see page 8 of the NOFO. Page 8 is going to give you the sanctioning information if you're applying as a nonprofit working in partnership with a federally recognized tribe. What other questions do we have? At what point will the sanctioning document be requested by AmeriCorps? So that'll be uploaded with your application at the time of applying. And it looks like Chandrea added in, if you're having challenges as you attempt to submit your applications through the eGrants system, you're going to want to contact the AmeriCorps hotline, and that number and email address for the AmeriCorps hotline is included in the NOFO. Great, and Megan just included the number in the chat for any of you that want to write that down. While this is our last Q&A session for this grant opportunity, I did want to add in that if you guys have additional questions that come up after this call, you can always reach out to your regional contact, and that's all of those folks are listed on the NOFO webpage, and they're happy to take any last minute questions that come up. We know that those things happen within the last week. Another great tip that I'll add in here is if you have not already created your account in eGrants and begun your application, I would highly encourage you to do that now. Even if you're not ready to fully complete the application and submit, you want to make sure that you have created your account, that you're you have an understanding of how the e-grant system works, and you feel like you can navigate through the application well ahead of when you want to submit. And likewise, if you're able to do so, you want to submit before the day that it is due, just to make sure. You know, I've been a nonprofit program director. I've had that stressful, horrible moment when the grant is due at 5 p.m. and it's 4:30 and your computer crashes. And we don't want to see that happen to any of you all. So if you're able to send it in early, that's great. It looks like Kate added in the list of regional contacts. So the link that she included, that's the main funding opportunity webpage. That has all of our technical assistance webinars listed, as well as the regional contacts for any questions that come up between now and the deadline. Looks like we have another question. If I fail to include a required document, will I be alerted as I try to submit? For the required documentation for your application, the e-grant system will take you through all the required steps. So you'll get to a point where it'll ask you to upload what you need to upload. And I always like to have a checklist with me when I'm applying for any grant. Once you go through the NOFO and determine what are the things that I am going to be required to submit for this grant, just have a checklist that you check off as you complete the application in eGrants. So we have a comment. Sometimes I'm not sure what's required for planning as opposed to operational grants. So this is a really great question. Within the NOFO, maybe one of my colleagues can help me with the exact page. There is a section specific to planning grants and what criteria are required for planning grants. It is a somewhat streamlined application. Page 25. Yes. Thank you. It is a somewhat streamlined application process as compared to an operational grant. You will still be required to submit the financial form. You'll still be required to submit the diversity questionnaire. You're still required to submit an application, though the narrative is a bit shorter. You're still required to submit a budget, and you're still required to complete the performance measures section. There are special instructions for planning grant performance measures that again is streamlined in comparison to the operational grant. And you can find those on the NOFO webpage under performance measures. There's a link that says performance measures for planning grants, and you want to follow that to a T.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Becky, that there's a list of required documentation on page 16 of the NOFO, which should also apply to the planning grants. So if you want to follow the instructions or the information on page 25, and then also reference page 16 as well.
That's a great tip. Thank you, Kate. Do we have any more questions? You can feel free to just unmute and say them aloud, or we can keep the chat going. The chat's very robust today. And I'm not seeing any further questions in the chat, but I'm gonna keep it going just a little bit longer in case folks are thinking of questions. But I do wonder if any of you colleagues from AmeriCorps, are there any tips that you think are important to share with our applicants? Anyone have a favorite tip?
Hi, everyone. It's Trandrea again. I'd say one tip would be, if you are the primary author or writer of the grant, to see if you can get someone else from your tribe or your organization to give it a review before you submit, just to make sure that you know, things are covered and that it's clear from somebody who's seeing it for the first time, because when it gets reviewed by us, we'll be seeing it for the first time. So you want to get that feedback.
Thanks, Chandrea. That's a great tip. And if this is your first time applying for AmeriCorps or any federal grant resources, having someone within your network that has either applied with our agency or with other federal agencies before, having them do a quick review with you is also helpful.
I would just add to be sure that you thoroughly review all of the application instructions and materials. So the NOFO, the performance measure instructions, the mandatory supplemental instructions, all of those links on the website, the budget instructions, just to make sure that you're not missing a question or a requirement for the narrative and for the other parts as you go. I know it's a lot and there is a lot of information on there, but just make sure that you've reviewed and read everything to make sure that your application has everything covered before you click that submit button.
Really good tip. I've got one more direct message question. Any chance the deadline will be extended? I don't think so. I think that the deadline is set for this funding opportunity. So you do want to get your applications in advance of the deadline on May 4th, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is an opportunity that is offered annually, so this will come up again next year too. Okay, well, we have some more time if you all have any further questions. I don't want to belabor this if you all have all the answers that you need. So I think I'm going to do one last call if any folks want to ask a question live here today. And as a reminder, you can find additional technical assistance, both webinar recordings for all of the sessions that we've offered thus far, as well as all the written materials on the funding opportunity website. And you're also welcome to contact those regional outreach contacts directly. They are happy to talk to you, and they're all listed on the webpage. It looks like in the chat, my internet connection is unstable. I missed what you said about having someone in the AmeriCorps organization review the application with you. Is that what you said? No, what I was saying is if you are new to applying for federal grants or AmeriCorps grants, sometimes finding someone within your network that has been successful in being awarded federal resources, having one of them look at your application through the eyes of someone who's been through a federal grant process before. Sometimes that can be helpful. Unfortunately, because this is a competition, AmeriCorps staff are not able to review your applications ahead of submission. Okay. Okay. Well, if there are not any further questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the live question portion for today. But before we sign off, I'm just going to give a few more reminders as we go into the last week before due date. The deadline for the applications, again, is Wednesday, May 4th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And we anticipate notifying successful applicants in early July. And again, you can find additional support both on the NOFO website as well as through your regional contacts. And here's a list of your regional contacts. Again, this is on the NOFO webpage as well. And again, we're just thrilled to see your interest in this opportunity, and we're really looking forward to reviewing your applications as they come in. So please feel free to follow up with your regional contact if you have any lingering questions after today. And again, thank you for your time and your interest in the funding opportunity.